But, I spent it anyway. I didn't mean to, it just happened. Felt right at the time, you know? Yeah, I know how bad that sounds, but seriously, hear me out. It was a small thing. Or at least, that's what I kept telling myself. But, it wasn't. I screwed up. Big time. And now? Here I am. Hi, I'm Amy. I'm 33 years old, married to Jake, and, this whole situation is kind of a mess. Look, I'm not trying to make excuses, but sometimes life just feels so overwhelming, like it's all closing in. You ever feel like everything's just so heavy? Like no matter what you do, you're drowning? Yeah, that's me. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I ended up in this huge fight with Jake. The whole house is tense, my head's spinning, and it's all over money. And honestly, I couldn't stop myself. Jake and I have been married for 8 years. We've got 2 kids, Maddie's 6 and Ben just turned 4. He's a good guy, really, but lately, I don't know. It's like he's laser-focused on making sure we're being financially responsible, always doing the right thing. And, I get it. I do. But it's not like I'm out here blowing money left and right, buying designer shoes or whatever. I know how to budget, at least I think I do. It's just when things feel tight, I feel like I need an escape. And shopping? That's my escape. It's not like I'm buying ridiculous things. I mean, this time it was just a quick trip to Target. A little splurge for myself. Nothing major, right? The day it happened, Jake was going on and on about how we needed to put more money into the kids' college fund. I was nodding along, saying, yeah, okay, but honestly, something about the way he was saying it rubbed me the wrong way. It was like he was saying, Amy, you're the problem here. If you don't tighten up, we're gonna be broke. And I hated that. It made me feel small, like I wasn't doing enough. It didn't help that I'd been feeling disconnected from him lately. Jake's been working late a lot, and even when he's home, he's glued to his phone, checking emails, scrolling through stuff. It's like he doesn't even see me anymore. So yeah, that's where my head was when I decided to go to Target. I wasn't planning to go crazy, just wanted to pick up a few things. But once I got there, it was like my brain shut off. I started walking down the aisles, grabbing stuff. A cute jacket for me, some towels for the bathroom, a couple toys for the kids. The time, it didn't feel like a big deal. Just small things, you know? Practical stuff. I even convinced myself it was all justified. I mean, the kids needed new toys, right? And those towels? They were on sale. Totally reasonable. But deep down, I knew what I was doing. I was using that shopping cart to escape. From the bills, the arguments, the distance between Jake and me. And for a little while, it worked. When I got home, I was riding this high, like, look at me being all productive and getting stuff for the family. But then Jake found the receipt. The look on his face, ugh, I can't even describe it. It wasn't just about the money. It was like he saw me as someone who didn't care about our future. And maybe in that moment I didn't. I was so caught up in doing something that felt good for once, I didn't stop to think about the consequences. He was pissed, and I get it. I do. But he wasn't listening to me. He didn't get how overwhelmed I've been, how I felt so invisible lately. He just kept going on about how irresponsible I was, how we needed to prioritize the kids' future. Well, yeah, obviously. But what about me? Is it so wrong to want something for myself once in a while? I didn't know how to say that without sounding selfish. And honestly, I didn't even feel like I was completely wrong. But Jake just wouldn't let it go. He kept pushing, saying I had to stop spending, that I was being selfish. And eventually I snapped. I said something I'll probably regret forever. Well, you don't care about me anymore, so why should I care about saving? Yeah, I said that. And the worst part? I kind of meant it. He hasn't been the same lately. He's so focused on making everything perfect for the kids, so focused on the bills and the future that he doesn't see how much I need him. Not to do things for me. Just to be there for me. And yeah, I know I shouldn't have bought all that stuff. But for a moment, it made me feel like someone was paying attention to me, even if it was just me paying attention to myself. Jake just stared at me after I said that. He didn't yell or argue. He just walked into the bedroom and slammed the door. I stayed downstairs, staring at the shopping bags, feeling this awful mix of guilt and frustration. I knew I'd messed up, but I also didn't feel like I was entirely to blame. It wasn't like I'd blown thousands of dollars. It was a few $100. Yeah, I shouldn't have spent it, but we're not gonna go bankrupt over it. But Jake didn't see it that way. Now I'm sitting here wondering if it was worth it. The days after that Target trip were awful. Jake barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was like clipped, short sentences. Did you pay the electric bill? Have you checked on Maddie's school project? Tough like that. The house was tense, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I mean, I knew I'd messed up, but I didn't think he'd shut me out like this. It was like we weren't even living in the same world anymore. He kept to himself, either in the office or staring at his phone, and every time I tried to start a conversation, I'd get a mumbled "not now" or "later." Drove me crazy. Look, I know I'm not perfect. I know I shouldn't have spent the money. But it felt like I was the only one trying to fix this. I tried apologizing, and he just nodded like, yeah, okay. I tried explaining why I'd done it, that I'd been stressed and just needed a break, and he just said, we all have stress, Amy. You don't see me spending money we don't have. That one hurt. And the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. It wasn't just about the money, okay? It was about how he acted like I was some kind of child who couldn't handle responsibility. I'm not a kid. I'm his wife. I'm supposed to be his equal, right? So why does it always feel like he's keeping score? I get it. He's the responsible one. The saver. The one with the spreadsheets and the big plans for the future. But I'm the one who keeps this house running. I'm the one who deals with the kids, the school calls, the meals, the endless laundry. And yeah, maybe I made some bad decisions. But it's not like I'm the only one who's ever screwed up. The more I thought about it, the more I started to resent him. I felt like he was so focused on making everything perfect for the future that he couldn't see how miserable I was in the present. And yeah, maybe I should have just talked to him about it, but every time I tried, he'd shut me down. So I stopped trying. I threw myself into the kids, the house, the day-to-day grind, and just ignored him. It wasn't like he was making an effort either. Every night, he'd sit on his phone or bury himself in his laptop, and I'd sit on the couch pretending to watch TV. The silence between us was suffocating. One night, after the kids were in bed, I finally broke. I was in the kitchen, staring at a pile of bills, and I could feel the tears coming. I hate crying, it makes me feel weak, but I couldn't stop. And then Jake walked in. He saw the bills, saw my face, and let out this long sigh. I can't keep doing this, Amy, he said. His voice was calm, but there was this edge to it, like he was barely holding it together. What do you mean? I asked, my voice shaky. He rubbed the back of his neck and looked down at the floor. I mean this. Us. The fighting, the tension, the constant feeling that we're just one bad decision away from everything falling apart. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. 'Cause honestly, he wasn't wrong. I felt like I was carrying this huge weight on my shoulders, and no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. But at the same time, I was furious. How is this all on me? I snapped. You act like I'm the only one making mistakes here, but you're not exactly innocent, Jake. You're never here. You don't talk to me. You just expect me to handle everything while you sit there judging me for how I do it. Jake looked at me like I'd just slapped him. That's not fair, he said quietly. I've been working my ass off to make sure we're okay, Amy. To make sure the kids are okay. I'm sorry if that's not enough for you. I could feel my throat tighten. It's not about the kids or the bills or the damn money, Jake. It's about us. It's about how I feel like I don't even exist to you anymore. For a second, I thought he was going to argue. But instead, he just looked away. I don't know what you want from me, he said. I'm doing the best I can. Yeah, I said bitterly. And your best is making me feel like I'm failing every single day. The silence after that was brutal. Eventually, Jake just shook his head and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with the bills and the crushing weight of everything that had gone wrong between us. I stayed in the kitchen long after Jake had gone to bed. The bills sat there like they were mocking me, a reminder of every mistake I'd made. I wanted to tear them up, to pretend they didn't exist, but that wouldn't fix anything. I thought about everything Jake had said, about how he felt like he was doing everything he could to keep us afloat. And maybe he was. Maybe he really was trying. But so was I. At least that's what I kept telling myself. The next morning, Jake barely spoke to me before leaving for work. Kids were running around, oblivious to the tension between us, and I was trying to hold it together for their sake. After I dropped them off at school, I sat in the car for a while, staring at the steering wheel. I hated this. I hated feeling like a failure. I hated that Jake looked at me like I was the reason everything was falling apart. But mostly, I hated that he might be right. I'd been avoiding the truth for so long, convincing myself that everything was fine, that I could fix it all eventually. But now I wasn't so sure. Later that day, I found myself at the mall. I wasn't planning to buy anything. Honestly, I just wanted to walk around to clear my head. But as I passed a display window, I saw a pair of shoes I'd been eyeing for weeks. They were gorgeous. Simple, elegant, and completely unnecessary. I stopped and stared at them, my heart racing. I knew I shouldn't. I knew Jake would be furious if he found out. But the temptation was overwhelming. I told myself I was just looking, just admiring them. But before I knew it, I was inside the store, trying them on. They fit perfectly. The salesperson smiled at me and said, "They look great on you." And in that moment, I felt seen. I handed over my card without a second thought. As I walked out of the store with the bag in my hand, I felt a rush of excitement. For a brief moment, everything felt okay. But the guilt hit me the second I got back to the car. What was I doing? Why couldn't I stop? When I got home, Jake was already there. He was sitting on the couch, his laptop open, looking as stressed as ever. I tried to slip past him without being noticed, but of course he saw the bag. "What's that?" he asked, his tone flat. I froze. "It's nothing," I said quickly. He set his laptop aside and stood up. "Amy, what is it?" "It's just a pair of shoes," I admitted, holding up the bag like it was no big deal. "Nothing crazy." Jake stared at me, his jaw tightening. "Amy, we just talked about this. We just talked about cutting back, about getting our finances under control. And now you're buying shoes?" "It's not a big deal," I snapped, more defensive than I meant to be. "Not a big deal," he repeated, his voice rising. "We're drowning in bills, Amy. I'm trying to keep us afloat and you're out buying shoes?" I felt my face flush with anger and shame. "You don't get it," I said, my voice shaking. "I needed something for me, Jake. I needed to feel like I wasn't completely falling apart. And spending money we don't have is supposed to fix that," he shot back. "No, but it helps," I yelled. "It helps me forget, even for a little while, how much everything sucks right now." Jake just stood there, staring at me like he didn't even recognize me anymore. "This isn't about the shoes, Amy," he said quietly. "It's about the fact that you don't seem to care about what happens to us, to our family." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "I do care," I said, my voice breaking. "But I can't be perfect, Jake. I can't be what you want me to be." "I don't want you to be perfect," he said. "I just want you to try. To meet me halfway." "But you're not even doing that." I didn't know what to say. 'Cause deep down I knew he was right. The silence that followed was unbearable. Jake just stood there, staring at me, waiting for something, an explanation, an apology, anything. But I had nothing. "Jake," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I know I messed up. I know I keep messing up. But I don't know how to stop. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Amy, I'm not asking for perfection. I'm not asking you to have all the answers. But you can't keep doing this. It's like every time we make a little progress, you just undo it. His words stung, but I couldn't argue. He wasn't wrong. I'm trying, I said quietly. I really am. But it's just what? He interrupted, his tone sharper now. Because all I see is you making excuses. I'm here trying to keep everything together, and it feels like you don't even care. That hit a nerve. Don't you dare say I don't care, I snapped, my voice rising. I care more than you know. I care so much it's suffocating me. I feel like I'm drowning, Jake, and instead of helping, you just stand there pointing out all the ways I'm failing. His face softened for a moment, but then he shook his head. Amy, I'm not trying to make you feel like a failure. But I can't do this alone. I can't keep carrying this weight by myself. You think I'm not carrying it too? I shot back. You think I don't feel the pressure, the stress, the constant fear that I'm not good enough? I feel it every damn day, Jake. And it's exhausting. We stood there, staring at each other, both of us too stubborn to back down. Finally, he broke the silence. I don't know what to do anymore, Amy. I don't know how to fix this. His voice was quiet, almost defeated, and it sent a pang of guilt straight through me. I don't know either, I admitted. But I don't want to lose us, Jake. I don't want this to be the end. He looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then something has to change. And it can't just be me doing all the work. I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. I know I need to do better. I don't know where to start. Jake sighed again, the weight of everything between us pressing down like a heavy fog. Maybe we start by being honest with each other. No more hiding things, no more excuses. We need to be a team, Amy. For us. For the kids. For the kids, I repeated, the words catching in my throat. It sounded so simple, but it felt impossibly hard. The next few days were awkward, to say the least. We weren't fighting, but we weren't really talking either. It was like we were both tiptoeing around each other, too afraid to say the wrong thing and start another argument. Jake spent most of his time in the office or with the kids, and I tried to focus on cleaning the house, organizing the bills, anything to feel like I was contributing. I even pulled out one of Jake's spreadsheets, trying to make sense of our finances. It was overwhelming. The numbers blurred together, and the weight of how much we owed felt crushing. But I didn't want to give up. I wanted to show Jake that I was serious about fixing things, that I wasn't just saying the right words to keep the peace. So I made a plan. I listed out all our bills, our debts, our expenses. I wrote down what we could cut back on, what we could do without. And when Jake came home that night, I showed him. Look, I said, pushing the paper toward him. I've been thinking about what you said, and I want to start fixing this. Together. He looked at the paper, then back at me, his expression a mix of surprise and something else. Are you serious? He asked, his tone cautious. Yes, I said firmly. I know I've messed up, Jake. And I know it's not going to be easy, but I want to try. For us. For the kids. For the first time in days, I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. "'Kay," he said, nodding slowly. "Let's do it. Together." It wasn't a perfect moment. There were still a lot of things left unsaid, a lot of wounds that needed healing. But it was a start.